Once upon a time, we see a lady. She was working alone in her office till late night at the start of the film. Everyone had left her office. Actually, this lady was a comic book publisher, that is, she used to publish books of different kinds of stories. And in this work, she had a partner whose name was Ji-yoon, who is also the main character of our story. Anyway, it was quite late. That lady was in her office and reads the story sent by Ji-yoon. She gets surprised. After reading the story, the lady calls Ji-yoon and says that this is the story of my mom's death. How do you know? How did you write this story? Then her call gets disconnected. All the lights were turned off and the office itself was sealed. Whatever that lady was doing there, everything was running on the computer screen in the form of a comic book. She does not understand what was happening to her. She was also hearing strange voices there. Then someone comes from behind and attacks her with a knife. He was mercilessly killed. The scene is cut here. We are shown two officers who were given to solve this lady's case. One of them was named Officer Key. Key's partner tells him that there was no one in this building at midnight. Everyone had left. I don't think anyone must have killed her. Who knows, she might have killed herself. Then a lady officer shows him the pages of the comic book on the computer screen as the lady was doing. Exactly the same picture was on the page of the comic book. This was a very strange thing. On the other hand, we see Ji-yoon, who was driving her car somewhere in the middle of the night. Ji-yoon is actually a comic writer. That is, along with writing those stories, she also made pictures and drawings related to those stories. And that lady used to publish her stories. Now when she was going home, a small girl's car suddenly comes in front of her. Ji-yoon quickly put the brake. Now that little girl comes to her and says, "Will you drop me at my house? My house is nearby." Ji-yoon had also made her sit in her car. On the way, she asks her, "Okay, tell me what is your name and how old are you?" That little girl tells Ji-yoon her name and also says that I am 16 years old. Ji-yoon says, "Okay, but you look only 10 years old." On which the child replies that I was 10 years old when I died. Ji-yoon is surprised to hear this and was also scared. When she looks at that little girl, she was missing from her car. She comes out of the car in fear. Then someone grabbed her hand tightly. She was scared and sat in her car again. Then she sees the soul of that little girl in front of her car, which was full of blood. After a while, we are shown that Ji-yoon was somewhere else. Now she feels that maybe all this is her imagination, her thoughts. But when she looks at the mark on her hand, she finds everything strange. After this, she goes to her doctor. She tells him that everything has been strange with her for a few days. She either has strange dreams or thoughts. When I come out of those dreams or thoughts, I am in a different world, in a different place, and I get marks on my body too. The doctor tells Ji-yoon that this often happens to many people. This can also be a disease. I think there is a clash in your real world and the world of dreams, because of which all this is happening to you. There in the lab, the doctor was checking the body of that lady who died in the office. The doctor tells Officer K, "I think this lady took her own life because there are marks of her fingers on the knife too. And at that time there was no one else in the office except her." But Officer K refuses to believe this and says that this cannot happen because why would anyone kill himself so mercilessly? After which, in his office, Officer K was reading Ji-yoon's comic book, the end of which is the last part, and he gets scared. Then his partner says that why don't you agree? That lady took her own life. We should close this case. But Officer K refuses to believe this. He didn't feel anything like that. He wanted to go to the bottom of this case. Here when Ji-yoon was sleeping in her house, then her doorbell rings.